Hi everyone, this is your host Sajed Ali Khan from English Learning Made Easy podcast. And today our topic for discussion is a journey of learning language. And to discuss this topic at length, we are honored to have among us Ma'am Urmi Hossain. Urmi Hossain is Bengali by blood and Italian by birth. She works in the financial services industry in Canada, where she is currently residing. She is a self published author, speaker, blogger, and the polyglot and mentor. She is the holder of the CFA charter as well as the CAIA charter. Her first book is Discovering Your Identity, a rebirth from interracial struggle. She is an advocate of women's empowerment and very passionate about teaching and mentoring other girls and women. She is the part of the organization called Women in Leadership for the Victoria chapter in Canada as the social media lead, where she spread the message of gender equality and more women in leadership, more women in the leadership position. She enjoys being a promoter of self-investing and the personal development. In her free time, she enjoys reading books and practicing Muay Thai. You are warmly welcome, ma'am, in our show.
Thank you.
What was the first language you started learning?
Okay, it depends what you mean by the first,
Yeah,
because Bengali is my mother tongue,
okay.
but then Italian is my adoptive mother tongue as well. Because if we have to say officially which language did I learn at school was, of course, Italian. And that became basically the first language that I have used. That was the first language that I used to communicate. And that was also the language that I also used to communicate at home with my younger sister. And time to time, I would also speak in Italian with my parents if I were not able to use Bengali words, or if was not able to find the Bengali words, because like the Bengali language that I have learned, it was mainly the spoken language that was used to communicate basically at home. And then, of course, there was the Italian part that I used.
Okay. Okay. Can you please share your language learning journey with our audience? How did it start and how you went through? What motivated you?
Yes. So at school, we had to learn a second language, which was English. And English was a language that I learned at school. And then I also learned more English when I was living in UK for a year. And then I went back to Italy, and then like I just basically continued learning English. And it wasn't just grammar, it was also language like English, like literature English, business in English. So it was like learning English also in other subjects. After that, I also learned how to speak French in Italy. And then of course, because I live in Canada, I live in Montreal, I need to know how to speak French, especially because it's a bilingual city. And so both English and French are very much spoken. I do use French a lot in at my workplace. And so that I learned it for 5 years, and then I had to take a few classes after moving to Montreal. And then I also learned how to speak German. I
Nice.
took classes for 3 years, but I don't consider German a language that I know because I actually lost it completely. I never used it. I never spoke the language after school. Then I was like, I don't want to go back to it, especially because it's not a language that I enjoyed as much. But when I was in university, I actually took Spanish classes. So I took like 3 Spanish classes. I went to like an intense level. And Spanish is a language that I very, very much enjoy. And nowadays, for instance, like I'm always like listening to podcasts, I'm like watching YouTube stuff in Spanish. And Spanish is a language that I very much enjoy among all the languages that I know.
So you are indeed very, very big kind of, we can say, the polyglot who have a lot of interest in learning different languages. So,
Yes.
do you think a language is a means of communication? There is no doubt about it. But when you learn English, it is working just like a master language for all others. But still, you have a passion for learning German, you have passion for learning French. So, what makes you learning these languages? What motivates you?
Well, some of them I had no choice. It was in the school curriculum. I had to learn them. Like French, it was a language that I had to learn at school, and the same goes for German. So some like I had no choice but learn those languages. But of course, like now that I live in Montreal, the fact that I work in a French environment, it's a choice that I made to continue improving my French. And the reason being is because I do think that learning languages, it's a way to connect with more people. It's a way to learn about different cultures. And the same goes with Spanish. Like I don't use Spanish in any setting. Like I speak English, Italian, Bengali, and French pretty much on a daily basis. And I speak them pretty much on an equal level during the week because I speak with different people and with like for instance, like with my family, I speak in Bengali, with my sister speaking in Italian, with my friends I speak in Italian, with people in Montreal, I have to speak English and French. So I do use them in like in an equal level. The only one that I'm not using right now is actually Spanish. But Spanish, the passion that I had for Spanish is because I do very much like the Spanish culture. I think it's a warm and it's a warm, like the people are very warm and welcoming, and I think I just have a genuine interest towards Spanish. So Spanish is the language that I chose because I am very much interested in learning about their cultures.
Good. Okay, what strategies have you found more effective in learning these languages? Did you follow any special kind of strategy, or did you apply the same strategies to other languages, or you found some different ways? Like for German, you have a different rule. For French, you have a different rule.
Yeah, definitely I applied different rules for all of them, and it was based mainly on my weakness. So for me, for instance, like for French, for instance, my weakness was the speaking. So the strategy that I applied was to basically speak it as much as possible. And so what I did is like I found a friend, like I have a friend who's from France, and I would like speak to him in French pretty much on a regular basis so I could practice my Spanish. Sorry, not my Spanish, my French. And I also used to like watch a lot of YouTube content that were in French, and I also used to listen a lot of podcasts in French. So that's what I did for French. For English, I mainly learned it at school, but I think the strategy that I applied with English, for instance, was that I used to watch a lot of content on TV, like on MTV. I used to watch like American shows because I wanted to imitate the American accent. So I would
Mhm.
watch American content and I would also listen to English music. And that
Yeah,
was also like a strategy that my professors implemented. Like she was like, you have to know the lyrics, you have to analyze the lyrics. And that was another way that I have learned English. But with English, I would say that it's we basically like learned it in the most complete way. Like we learned the writing, we learned the listening, we learned the reading. So like with English, it was a kind of different approach. And then with Spanish, for instance, like I took, of course, classes. But now, for instance, what I do is I actually watch Easy, like there's this YouTube channel called Easy Spanish. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but basically I watch those interviews that they're basically the people that run the channel. They go around the city and they interview people, and that's how I'm trying to learn. Like I want to learn the colloquial Spanish, and the interesting thing about this particular YouTube channel is that they interview people from like different parts of Spain as well as different parts of like Latin American countries. So you can hear the Mexican Spanish, you can hear the Barcelona Spanish, the Spanish from Madrid. And so it's like different. So I'm also trying to pick up the different kinds of accents. So that's another approach I'm taking.
Okay, what kind of obstacles did you meet during this journey of learning the different languages? Did you follow same kind of problems, impediments or obstacles, or you found some different obstacles in different languages? Like when you learn English, what kind of problems you face? When you learn French, do you think some similarities between these problems, or they were different in different languages?
So there are some differences. There are also similarities, but they all vary. So for instance, when I was learning Spanish, my biggest obstacle was the fact that Spanish is so similar to Italian and
Mhm.
French in a way that I was always mixing Spanish with English and not sorry, I was mixing it with Italian and French. And so like they would make us write essays, for instance, and I would like randomly put like a word in French or in Italian, and that was an issue. Like that was like I was mixing it up with the other languages. With French, the obstacle I would say is that it has a lot of rules, a lot of grammar rules. And it's not just the rules, it's exceptions to the rules that you have to memorize. And it's not like French, it's a very difficult language if you don't speak like a Latin language. And it becomes challenging if you do not have that strong base because there are so many rules, there are so many exceptions to the rules. You have to memorize so many vocabulary, so it becomes challenging. With um, with English, I would say I did not have any big obstacles, but I would say that the listening was probably something that I had to work a little bit more. And just because with English, you have the Australian English, you have the American English, you have the British English, you have the South African English. So it's different accents. So they all have a different accent, and you have to be able to understand what they're saying. So maybe like with English was just the listening a little bit.
Okay. Nowadays, learning a language has become very easy because so many apps, learning language apps are available.
Mhm.
So, do you think the use of technology in learning the language is influenced to a great extent? Is it easy for the new learner nowadays as comparable to the time when people didn't have all these apps?
Yes, definitely. And I wish during my time they had applications because I think I would have used them to learn and practice the languages that I know. But let's say like back in my time, it was mainly like face to face, and you learn a language in the classroom with the professor. Whereas right now, I feel like it's much more accessible. Like anyone from any parts of the world can learn a language through those apps that you were talking about. Like even the simple fact of having even this kind of conversation could be a learning tool for people who want to learn English, for instance, because we're speaking in English, they can listen in English. And I do think there's a lot of information out there. Like you have applications, you have language coaches, you have podcasts, you have all those resources online to learn grammar, you have YouTube content. I think like it's much more accessible. And I also think it's convenient at the same time because you don't need to be in a particular classroom at a certain time. You can just learn anytime at your own pace, basically.
Okay, what is the role do you think in learning a language? When a person is speaking with the native speaker of any language, so that plays, I think, a very, very important role. What do you have to say? Do you get a native speaker easily to do practice? Like if you are learning German, will you get a person from Germany? Or if you are learning French, do we face such kind of problem while learning, or
I don't
how?
think you,
Or
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead. Sorry,
how
go
to
ahead.
how to sort it out, uh, like if I want to do practice of speaking English, so do I need to resort to any English person? Means how should I go ahead?
Yeah, I don't think you need a native speaker. I think you just need someone who speaks the language really well, I think.
This native speaker
Be,
is not necessary.
I don't think you need necessarily a native speaker. And why I tell you this is because native speakers, they don't need to learn the language. So oftentimes they don't know the rules, they don't know the grammar rules. And I think the best people to teach are the ones that actually learn the language because they know all the rules to the grammars,
Even if he
for
has learned
instance.
English as a second language, that also
Yes,
will do. Okay.
yes, I think so. Yes.
Yeah. Even I do agree with you. Yes. Yes. Okay. In which way the learning of a new language has impacted your life? Means after learning that language, have you seen that you have growth in your career? What kind of impact it has on your life?
I mean, I guess I just became, a bit more knowledgeable. The fact that I can not just speak one language, I think it makes me, a person who is rich in a way, meaning that I do have a lot of knowledge. And I got to be exposed to many different cultures, because I lived in UK, so I got to be exposed to that English side. I now live in Montreal, so I'm exposed also to that French side. And so I do think it made me more open-minded. It made me aware of the differences. It made me aware that there is more than one way to speak a language. Even if it's just English, you have different ways to speak English. And it made me aware of these things also with the French language. Like I used to think there was just one kind of French, but there is not just one, there's more than one type of French. And so you become a little bit more aware of the differences. And I think it makes you a richer person. Like I do like to see it that way because you're able to you're able to have different perspectives about things. And when you learn a language, it's not just language, it's not just rules, it's not just grammar. You learn about cultures, learn about people, you learn about traditions, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful because you get to learn a little bit about other countries without being in those particular countries.
Okay. What are your future goals in the language learning? Have you planned to learn some more new languages now?
No, I need to finish with my Spanish. That's my goal. Like I wanna be able to speak a Spanish, be able to speak Spanish fluently.
Mhm.
I try to speak a little bit time to time. I do feel like the fact that I know Italian helps, but it is my long-term goal is to make sure that I know how to speak Spanish well. And I haven't thought of another language after Spanish. I think I know enough for now. So
Maybe
yeah,
Arabic
who knows
also will
though?
come after some months or years, maybe.
Honestly, who knows? Who knows? Like my door is open, so I can learn maybe another language. Who knows?
Mm. Okay, what advice would you like to give to our audience among whom somebody might be learning a new language? What kind of guidance you would like to give?
I would say that learning a language is a constant work in progress. And what I want to say is that when you're learning a language and you feel demotivated because you don't see results, it's when you are staying committed that you are going to make big differences.
Of course.
Because learning a language, it's a journey. It's not a one-time thing. It's a long journey that can take years. It's not those like people that say, "Oh, you're gonna learn this language in 6 months." Not, it's not, does not work like that. You have to be committed and you have to be patient enough to be committed and to wait for the results. So it might not come, let's say, in 6 months, but you might start seeing some results in a year, two, three. But it's really about staying committed and devoted to your learning journey.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I think we should have the amalgamation of patience and the passions. Both the things
Yeah,
should go hand in hand, and definitely
yeah,
there will be a learning very easy for that learners. Okay,
yeah.
so actually that's all for today's episode. Thanks a bundle for giving your precious time from your very busy schedule and your advice to our audience. I hope our audience will definitely get a benefit from your discussion. And it's time to say bye now. Thank you so much again for being in our show. And I will look forward next time with some other topic. I would like to invite you again. Thank you so much. Please take care and may God bless us all. Thank
Thank
you.
you.